Save the Semantics episode 345. It is September 30th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Tuesday afternoon / evening. It has been rainy and kind of cloudy and that kind of thing, but we're getting the smell, the post-rain smell, which is now... which one of my favorite words now, petrichor, the word to describe that. You're getting kind of the sense of that, and it's really nice. I don't particularly like the rain, but I do like the post-rain feeling of just being, just being out and taking in the scents. That's one of my favorite parts of being out here in particular. So that's it's been nice. That's been nice to enjoy. But big news, or rather finally some news. The news that we've been waiting for as Warriors fans. Kuminga deal and saga is finally over. Well, in terms of just the signing news, is finally over. Agreed to sign I think was a 2-year deal, with a team option, which is the big part of it, which means that he will be trade eligible beginning, I think, starting at the trade deadline in January, I think is when that is taken into effect. So that's good news. Glad that whole situation is cleared up, at least temporarily, you know what I mean? Here's the thing, and I don't want to be a downer following this announcement, because this is something that we've all just been hanging on for, just like, can we just wrap this up? For Kuminga, all of this chicanery, like, nah, come on, man. Let's move on from this. And so I'm glad that it's, that has settled. Now, going into the actual basketball portion of it, how is that going to look like? Is he going to really slot in as a rotational player? I mean, like, is he actually going to be a contributing player, at least for the first half of the season? I have a lot of doubts about that. So I'm just curious to see, like, what they're actually going to try to do with him. We know what it looks like. We know Kerr's not going to play him unless absolutely necessary, like they did in the Timberwolves series. And I just think that the thing is, it's just that in order for this to fully kind of clear out, to be fully off the books in a sense, is to move him and kind of, in a way, sucker a team into buying him as a potential target, as a potential, piece to build around, right? I mean, I think the Kings were kind of the most reported team that have been reported to be interested in getting him. I don't know why they would want that, just considering I just the fit doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Who would the Warriors take back in that? I mean, they've talked about taking back someone like Malik Monk in that deal. I don't know how well his fit would be with the Warriors. I don't understand why the Kings would take Kuminga. That just doesn't make any sense at all for his fit. If they're still going to keep players like Levine and DeRozan, like, that just sounds like awful. Kuminga's not a good defensive player really either, so it's just like, I don't know. The Kings are just kind of, what would even be the move there? So it's just kind of, those conversations have already happened. Now it's just kind of a matter of, okay, are they actually going to make an attempt to bring him back in, to integrate him into the rotation? I just have my doubts about that. And so I think it's really just going to come down to, is a team willing to give into that potential? Are they willing to just give a shot at a younger player who hasn't been given the chance and the opportunity to maybe thrive, who might thrive better under a different system and those kinds of things, right? So there might be a team out there that might be willing to give him a chance. I think the issue is, it's good that the deal is done. Are they going to be able to move him is the question. If we kind of assume that they're not going to play him, which means that they're not going to be able to showcase his trade value, other teams are not going to be able to sort of assess the type of player he is, although you could look back in past years' footage and maybe take something away from that. But how are they going to rehabilitate his trade value if the expectation and what it really feels like and what I understand it to be like is that they're not going to play him? They are not going to play him because he is not a complementary player in this system. It just feels. I also think that there's, I don't know how much, I mean, I think everybody are pretty much vets, right? Other than, some of the younger players. So I think that they'll be able to handle things. And, honestly, we have no idea what the locker room really looks like in a lot of instances. I know there's like a ton of coverage and stuff like that, but there are still things that we are privy to or we just don't have information on. So I'm sure maybe players are fine with him, but you could clearly see on the floor Steph having very obvious frustrations with Kuminga whenever he makes, whenever he makes his mistakes or does something on the offensive end where he just completely stalls the offense and doesn't move the ball around. There was a really good video that I saw. I think it was B-Ball Breakdown that had a nice kind of sort of film breakdown of the mistakes that Kuminga makes on, the offensive side of the floor, which completely disrupts the offense that the Warriors are trying to run, and why that can be incredibly frustrating for someone like Steph. So I thought that was pretty insightful, and it was a nice little, kind of like it definitely was not helping Kuminga's case at all, but it just was a clear showcase of just the lack of fit. Just maybe just the player IQ is just not quite there. It just isn't working in this system's favor. So I think that just based on that, and it's been 4 years now, I think there's just been enough time that has elapsed to really give the team a huge sample size to look at, where it just is not something that's going to work. It's just not going to work. So I think that I just don't know what the move is going to be. I just think that there has to be kind of this, there has to be some level of faith in a way to hope that a team is, I say suckered in, but maybe there's actually a team out there that would work really well with him. Maybe there is a team out there that can work, have him play well under a certain coach or play well under a certain scheme or something like that. You know what I mean? So there might be that opportunity out there. We just don't know if there's a team that has or needs that kind of availability. So that's kind of the question, right? I think we know what to expect from him. It's just time and time again. It's just not going to work. And so what they kind of have to rely on is hoping that another team will be able to buy into him and hopefully consider him as a trade target during the trade deadline or prior to the trade deadline, is my understanding of it. other than that, it's like, what, is there going to be another move that could be available? I think actually maybe the trade timing, it might be a little earlier than that, but I need to look into that a little bit more. But yeah, is there, what is the move going to be? Because I just don't think on the court there's really going to be, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like there's going to be a buy-in. Like, I understand that now he has the contract, so maybe that incentivizes him to play better and buy into the system. I mean, it worked for Jimmy, but Jimmy Butler's like a whole different tier of player than Jonathan Kuminga, so I don't even really think that situation is comparable. Jimmy got his money, and it worked out for both sides. But in the case of Kuminga, he's not a proven player. He's not an all-star player. He did not lead his team to the NBA Finals on 2 separate occasions. He does not have that. He is not that type of player. Maybe he might be in the future. We have no idea. But I think to expect that, and considering his youth, it's just a lot to expect. And I think the team and Steve Kerr know better than really anybody else that he's going to be a negative contributor when on the floor with Steph. So I think that's going to be, that's just going to be the thing. I don't think he's going to play. And we just have to hope that there's a team where we can make a move. That, I think a lot of people are noting that it is positive that the Warriors got the team option, which I think is good. But honestly, like, really the biggest thing would have just been to, like, why not just waive him? You know what I mean? But I understand if there is this need to make another move at the trade deadline, having an additional asset, I think, having an additional player that we can, use in a trade transaction, I think is beneficial to my understanding. So it's better to have, someone to trade than not have anything at all. Right, I think is my sort of very naive understanding of things. So, management understands this far more than I do. So I think this is probably the best case scenario, for just everything considered, all the factors and all the all of the other clauses that you have to kind of take into account. This is probably the best case scenario, is that the team is the one that's able to make that move. The thing that I'm so, I just don't understand the Kuminga's situation on is, like, if you want to, I mean, they got he got the contract, which is good, but if you want to find yourself in a position where you could, extend your career and find, play in a different situation that works better for you, why wouldn't you want to be as amicable as possible, right? Like, why wouldn't you try your best to negotiate in terms that work favorably for yourself and the team? Like, now, luckily, this seems to be, again, best case scenario, but just the fact that it took so long to get to this point is just it's incredibly annoying. And 2, it's just kind of like a head scratcher of, like, what is, the whole agent situation where he went on air to talk about the situation, but it didn't really seem like he was really saying anything noteworthy. He was just kind of reiterating both sides of the situation. I just don't understand why you wouldn't try to advocate for your player in a way that it's like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, it didn't feel like there was this attempt to get the best situation or get the best result from this situation. You know what I mean? It's entirely possible that the current financial landscape of the NBA under the CBA is what resulted in this situation. But I also think that there were some personalities involved which didn't allow it to be a smooth kind of operation. You know what I mean? It really could have ended so much earlier than this. And like, if the Warriors offered the qualifying offer, you're handicapping yourself because you have a player that doesn't want to be there. You're not able to trade him under a lot of considerations. Like, there's more time that has to be allotted. So it's like, and Kuminga doesn't want to be here, right? Like, that feels kind of clear. The Warriors don't want him. He doesn't want to be here. So it's just like, why wouldn't you want to be amicable? Why wouldn't you just, I don't know. It kind of confuses me, the negotiation kind of tactics portion of it. I just don't understand why it took so long to get to this point where what was like the holdout for this, you know what I mean? That's kind of the frustrating part of it, because it completely halts everything. And now we're finally in trading camp and everything like that, which is good. We can finally move on and everything, but that is just such an unnecessary distraction from what could have been. You could have had the players in earlier. They could have had more time to gel and mesh with the rest of the crew. Like, I don't know. It's just such a, it's just frustrating. I mean, again, I'm more than happy to be able to move past this, but the fact that we had to get to this point is just frankly annoying. And now the next thing is going to be, what is the next move going to be for him? How are we going to be able to trade Kuminga in the potential near future? So that's kind of where things are. I'm not even going to think about it until, like, I really don't expect him to play much at all. I just don't think the faith and the trust is there in him as a player, right? I think that they are going to prioritize the players who know their roles in this system, which I think a lot of players on this team are willing to buy into those roles. I think there are specific players that are like that. Podziemski clearly understands, his role. You got Moody. I just think, the bench, I think there's some cohesion there as well. Really, just the outlier is Kuminga. So I just don't think he's going to get minutes with who we have in rotation. He's not going to play in a position. I just don't, is he going to be power forward? Is he going to be backing up Draymond? I don't know. I just don't see it. So yeah, that's kind of where things are. Like, I bet Steve Kerr would be more willing to play a rookie like Will Richards in lieu of Kuminga, because there seems to already be that buy-in. There already seems to be this understanding of playing a particular role in this current system. And I think, as I talked about yesterday, that is what that is kind of the focus with how, that is like the drafting philosophy for this Warriors management group, as it has been for quite some time, right? Is drafting for fit, not for whoever like the best player in the draft is. That hasn't, when they have gone with that method in drafting who might be potentially the best player, in a James Wiseman, a Kuminga, like, that hasn't worked out, right? So I think, ever since that point moving on, the philosophy has kind of really shifted to where, you really want to have the connecting pieces to surround this team around Curry. So that I think is, just the right pieces, right? Not someone who, expects more and wants more recognition or something like that. You know what I mean? Anyways, yeah, that's kind of, we've finally are able to move past that. I really just wanted to touch on that because I'm just glad this whole situation is cleared with, and now we can move forward going into training camp, preseason, all that kind of stuff. Basketball is close. Preseason stuff is close. Starts up on Friday, I think. And I think the Warriors play this weekend, so I'll definitely try to catch that. But yeah, we're kind of we're taking a turn, as we get out of September going into October, as the leaves turn, and become dry. We change seasons, and we go into a new season with the NBA. So that's going to be exciting, and I'm really looking forward to continue talking about that, continue talking about other things that might catch my interest as we get closer to that. So yeah, that's going to do it for now. I'll talk a bit more later this week if there are any news updates. If I want to talk more gaming stuff, as usual, that's going to be the plan. So yeah, until a little later, probably maybe in a couple days or so. All right, it is October 2nd. Recording this on a Thursday evening. It is post kind of rain weather, which and then you get the smell of it, the petrichor, which is now one of my favorite words to use. It's nice. It's a nice feeling. It was pretty overcast for most of this week, so seeing kind of the sun and seeing the sky poke through the clouds is kind of nice. So good stuff there. This week has been good, I think. I recorded on Tuesday, I think. So the last couple days have been decent, I would say. As we get closer to some actual basketball action, which we did in fact already get some earlier today. I obviously didn't watch any of it because I was working, but the Knicks and Sixers played, and then tomorrow it's going to be I think Suns Lakers, I believe, for preseason action, and then I believe this weekend the Warriors will be playing as well, which I will absolutely watch. If I can, just depending on the time. I don't know what time that's going to be, but I believe I'll be free at that time. So I'll be checking it out then. So some stuff to definitely look forward to. Yeah, so I yesterday I started playing. I found this game, just kind of a recommendation. I was like on either Reddit or YouTube or something like that, called Cloverpit, which is a roguelike very much kind of in the vein of Balatro, which, was one of my favorite games I played last year. And I've been kind of trying to, with certain roguelikes, I've just been trying to find a certain itch, and it had been a while since I've really explored a new kind of rogue-like game in that manner. I did try, maybe like a few months ago, I tried a couple of games on Steam for games that were like demos of games, and some games that were really cheap. And some of those were fun, but it just didn't really click. It didn't really stand. Maybe I'll go back to them sometime in the future. But it had been quite some time before, since I've really, played something along the lines of like a Balatro. I mean, it's hard to get that same experience because it is, such a unique game, and a lot of other games are trying to kind of replicate that success. I'm sure to, maybe similar, but maybe not in the same vein of success. And then I think this Cloverpit game, which is essentially Balatro, but instead of poker, you're playing slots. And you're doing, you still got all of the different items and stuff like that, which help boost certain symbols and that kind of thing. So I played that a little bit yesterday, and it's really fun. It really is kind of the scratch. It itches the scratch that I've been kind of craving. Yeah, it's been a while since I've kind of had that sort of like similar, like, ooh, this feels like this can be kind of maybe like an addicting kind of game, a little game to just play on the side. I've been searching for that, and I think I found it. I don't know how, in terms of like the longevity, I'm not entirely sure, how long it's going to hold up. Because like Balatro, I played for a incredibly long time. I played that for, it feels like half the year before I finally was like, yeah, I feel like I've done most of the things that I've been able to do in this game. Of course, there are still like the tiers that I could go back and try to clear to challenge myself and that kind of thing, which I have on some occasion. But I felt like I've put quite a lot of time into Balatro, and I was like, okay, it's time to sort of move on to the next thing. In terms of this game, it feels like I don't know what the scope of it is going to be. There does seem to be a pretty impressive list of items that you can kind of unlock. There's like, I don't know, there's like different types of like challenge modes that you can do. I'm still not 100% sure what benefits those provide, other than like unlocking more items and that kind of thing. But I'm just kind of playing through and seeing what happens, seeing what, just like the end result of the game is going to be. Just, I guess I just keep playing it until I get tired of it, which feels kind of the case for a lot of roguelike games. But yeah, I've had a lot of fun with it, even within just kind of my brief play sessions. And I think this is kind of what I needed. I was kind of craving. Yeah, I mean, I was craving this form of game for a little while, but I was also craving a game maybe separate from my bigger games, right? I've talked quite a lot about wanting to sort of, create a little intervals where I go from like, maybe one big game to the next. I play like a shorter game in between. While this game, I think, can supplement that, but also it just serves as like, oh yeah, this is just like something you can kind of play on the side and not think about it too hard. You know what I mean? And it kind of fits perfectly for that. I think, because I'm still, I still haven't gone through and completed The Witcher 3 yet. I think I kind of want to save that for like the weekend a little bit, just because like I want to really like dive deep and really, beat the game to the fullest extent. And I feel similarly about that with Trails in the Sky, where I want to dedicate and actually, put my focus on the game, as opposed to playing it maybe like a little not as like fully attentive as I would be during like the weekdays when I'm still busy and stuff like that. Like I can maybe like clock in like an hour or something like that, during the week. So it's with a game like this, Cloverpit or a Balatro, these types of games where I can play them in shorter sessions, it serves me a lot better during the week, as opposed to, some of the longer games where it's like, I feel like I'm not able to get in like a full session. I can't get in a full session, right? So I'm I can enjoy more of that on the weekend. I think that just kind of serves it better anyway. So, it works out. But it's a lot of fun. I don't know really. There's not really like a lot to really talk about. It's like a slot machine game, but there's elements to it, and there's ways you can strategize so you can earn the most coins and, essentially kind of break the rules to your favor and all that kind of stuff, right? It's the same kind of thing as you would see in Balatro, where certain jokers having a certain, hand, allows you to, maximize your earnings and that kind of thing. So it's the same philosophy, and, it's fun. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, this is what this is my kind of like gambling, quote unquote, right? Where you're not actually gambling real money. Like that's the real thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, I absolutely understand, just like the potential for like a gambling addiction. And I think games like this, where there's not actual things at stake, I think is like a good, I have no idea about the psychology. I don't know if studies have been conducted with these games, but I feel like these are a really good outlet for someone who has like a gambling addiction. I really do think so, right? Like you just can't. It's one of those things where I'm assuming in a similar way to smoking or any other type of addiction, it's not something you can just quit cold turkey, right? Like you got nicotine patches and all that kind of stuff. There's got to be a way to, alleviate some of that, but also, you can't just completely shut it off, because I think that just completely messes with your brain. So I feel like something along the lines of these games where there's, the basis of it is a gambling game like poker or slots or something like that, but it's not actual money. There's not actually anything you're losing stake in. Maybe the only thing you're losing is maybe like some time. Maybe you get caught up playing too much of the game or something like that, like there are instances where that can happen, but I don't think that it's, I don't think that's like I think it could be a good like avenue for people to take if they need to, you know what I mean? So that's just kind of how I feel. It could be a nice little, because I like these types of games. I enjoy playing games. I just think the danger, as I've talked about in the past regarding sports gambling and all that stuff, is just how much of an effect it can have on your livelihood, on your health, and the people around you and all that kind of stuff. It just, there is such a detrimental factor to it, where because of how pervasive gambling is, especially here in the States, it's hard to often separate, the fun and games portion of it from the awful consequences of being addicted to it. You know what I mean? Because the games by themselves, if there's no actual stakes attached, maybe, I don't know, if you're gambling something that's not your livelihood and your security, and you're just gambling, I don't know, you're gambling candy or something like that. I don't know. But even that could maybe be a bit of a slippery slope, right? But the games itself, it doesn't have to be something where it ruins your life, right? So I think for someone like me who enjoys these games by itself, I enjoy card games, right? I think this is like a good way for people, just like a good outlet for people, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's kind of how I sort of look at it. But I am curious to see if there are any tangible benefits for people with addictions to use and leverage these kinds of games, and maybe help them move away from the actual issue of actual addiction. I have no idea, but yeah, that's kind of how. That's maybe how I look at it. I mean, there's also the case of where there's the potential of something, I'm not into gambling myself, but the potential where something like this maybe influences me to actually gamble, you know what I mean? So maybe there's also that side effect as well, where it's like you want to get the feeling of winning money, but actually winning money. Maybe there's a little bit of that as well. I do remember watching and listening to this one video talk about gambling elements in games, especially things like loot boxes in Counter-Strike, and what some of those other loot crates or cards in FIFA, where you're opening up packs and stuff like that. That's also a gambling element, where people are spending actual money to try to get certain players and stuff like that. So that, I think you could absolutely argue that there are some, some issues there, but I think I feel I want to be more, I don't know, optimistic in the sense that these games that are already kind of presented that way, there are no like in-game transactions, right? There are no in-game transactions with Balatro. You buy the game, you buy the game. You're not like, ooh, I'm going to pay more money to get this Joker card that's not available if I were to play this game. Or in the case of this the Cloverpit game that I played a little bit, it's like, oh, if you pay more money, you'll get access to this special gold slot machine or something. Those are not real. Those are not things that are presented in the game, which I think is good. I think if it's a game especially about gambling, you should probably avoid making actual microtransactions and stuff like that available. Like that would be a disaster, right? I mean, there's so many other pervasive modes of gaming monetization, especially within mobile gaming and stuff like that, which I think is it sucks to see. It's just the unfortunate thing is those games make so much money off of people spending money to try to obtain certain characters, whether it's some of those Hoyoverse games of Genshin Impact and or other games as well, right? There's plenty of mobile game examples where you're paying to get certain gambling to get certain characters and stuff like that, or you're paying to get those characters so you can progress in the game, which is that feels a lot more heinous than anything else, right? I feel like that should be I don't know, that kind of feels frowned upon. But yeah, that's kind of just wanted to talk a little bit about that since I played a little bit of it. But yeah, I think it's fun. I think it's a fun little, kind of a little fun little side thing during the week. So yeah, just like a quick little spiel there. I may record tomorrow, this weekend. I'll see. I'll definitely want to talk about some of the preseason games that do pop up. Pop up. That's not a word or a term. The preseason games that happen over the next few days, I do want to talk about. So that is kind of the next thing that I'm really looking forward to. Season just kind of keeps coming up. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention on Tuesday, the Warriors did sign Seth Curry as well to I think it's like an Exhibit 10 or Exhibit 9 deal. So he's on the preseason roster, which means he's not guaranteed a position on the final roster. But if they waive him, they have the chance to sign him in November or something like that, is what I saw. I do remember, so I need to correct myself. This was kind of a similar thing that happened years ago. So Seth was on the preseason roster back in like 2017 or 2018 or something like that, and then they waived him because I think they have someone else took priority over him on the roster. So he was never officially on the team for the regular season. So it's kind of a similar case here where he's on the preseason roster, but he's not on the regular roster just yet. And I'm assuming they're going to move forward with that because I think it would make sense to have just maybe one additional guard, and it would be cool to have Seth on the team officially. Like, that would be nice. But yeah, that's kind of the situation. There's all of these, there's so many rules and stipulations with contracts. It's ridiculous. There is so much minutia and stuff like that. It just gets so ridiculous. I think that was like that is like another reason with kind of the whole unrestricted free agency and with the CBA and all that kind of stuff, that the whole Kuminga situation maybe was an issue as well. I think that contributed to it, right? You could absolutely argue that the agent and Kuminga were just kind of dragging it out to try to get the best deal, in the same way the Warriors were, standing forth and staying put on their position and stuff like that. So it could just be a whole negotiation, the fact that it just didn't result and it could have ended sooner. But I do think that the CBA and the way in which certain contracts are written out, and how there's a lot of restrictions regarding the salary cap and all that is another part of the reason why we had this whole situation to begin with. Is my kind of understanding of it, right? The fact that if you are in a position of as an unrestricted free agent, you as the player do not have the ability to seek, there's the concept of free agency, it seems like, does not even really exist, right? I mean, the last time that happened was really like the Durant era, right? I can't even think of. I'm sure there are other examples of free agents going to places, but I think the way I look at it, teams want to leverage salaries in the best way possible. So players, while I don't know, there's arguments about player agency and how the CBA kind of allows that. I think this is all more. I wouldn't even say this benefits the teams, because it doesn't, right? It doesn't. They're limited in the ways in which they can maneuver because of the salary cap, but it's more so because it's the cause and effect of that is that there is also no free agents around, because players are signed to a contract which doesn't allow them to freely move about in the market as they desire in a lot of instances, because ultimately the decision falls on how a team wants to utilize them. You know what I mean? I know there are instances of smaller players going to teams, but in terms of a larger free agent market, it feels like it's been quite some time since we've seen a massive move. I think a lot of people are pointing to Giannis next summer potentially being the next domino that falls, and him leaving for free agency or whatever that might look like. If he does not sign another extension with the Bucks, that will be the case. That will be the scenario. We'll have to do the whole song and dance again with Giannis leaving and everything, right? It's so funny because I did a whole almost a eulogy this past summer of Giannis leaving the Bucks, because I really thought that this was the last time we were going to see him in a Bucks jersey. Seeing him walk off the floor and the way he was talking about things, I was like, yeah, this is the end. This feels like the end. And it still might be the end, because I have no idea what this Bucks team is going to look like this upcoming season. They just do not. I just don't. They'll be in the playoffs because of Giannis, but outside of that, they just don't stand a chance, right? So depending on how that goes, and depending on whether he signs, if he doesn't sign an extension, I think that kind of is kind of telling us what that's going to be probably it then. And then we can finally sort of move on and see him go to some team that is willing to offer him the next big contract. But yeah, I don't know. It just is, it's just so funny that it feels like we're doing this every single year with Giannis ever since 2020, 2021, prior to them winning a championship, and then afterwards it's been a whole conversation. I mean, Warriors fans have just been hoping for him to make that move. It just never came to fruition. I don't think we ever had a chance, right? I just don't. It all just seemed very speculative. He's always such a tease when it comes to this kind of stuff. He's always teasing like, oh, maybe I won't be here. I like the Warriors. I like the Bay Area, because he was doing a commercial or something like that. He was I don't know, I think it was like the Google phone event or some shit. And, people are like, oh, he's in the Bay Area. What does that mean? Anything? No. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. We're going to have to do this whole thing again next summer. We're probably doing throughout the year. If the Bucks are bad at all, that's going to be a topic of conversation. It's like, oh, the Miles Turner acquisition didn't work. The rest of the team is kind of trash. Doc Rivers is not the best coach. It's the same thing, it's the same kind of conversation. It's been going on since last year. So, but we'll see. It's just how the NBA is. You know what I mean? But yeah, more basketball this weekend. Very excited. It's still preseason, so it's not going to hit the same, but at least I'll be able to catch a glimpse of some actual basketball, and looking forward to that. And I'll see if I'll try to talk about it maybe this weekend or Monday or whenever I'm feeling it. That's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.